Hey guys, my name is Heinrich. Welcome back to my channel Firm Learning and to another coffee break with me. It is actually the first coffee that I was drinking today. This morning I worked a lot in PowerPoint on creating different types of PowerPoint presentations for the work that I'm currently doing. And this just reminded me of the time in consulting where I literally created thousands of PowerPoint pages over a time span of about 6 years. I know that this can actually be quite challenging. It is quite a learning development that you do as a junior business analyst joining consulting, just learning the tools of PowerPoint until you're a professional of several years and then really do these slides well. There's much more to it than it seems. Creating good and compelling PowerPoint presentations is not easy at all. It's really a craft that you learn over time, and even after 1 or 2 years in consulting, you will still not be there where you need to be to really have these decks at a professional level where they need to be in the end. For that, I at some point a few years ago created a course. It's called a course on slide writing, on creating PowerPoint presentations as top consulting firms do. And one of the topics that I cover in this course is action titles. Action titles is an important part of every good professional PowerPoint page. It's the title that appears in the very top of the page. And in this video, I would like to give you an insight into how these action titles are supposed to be written, are supposed to be crafted. And if you now say, who cares about the title, this is unimportant, you're completely wrong. I can tell you this, action titles are a crucial part of every PowerPoint presentation. So let me show you what's all about it and how to write a good and compelling action title. This section is all about action titles. You already learned about action titles in the introductory section on storylines, but I think it is important that you really understand this concept in detail, because writing good action titles is actually really important and very crucial and key to create a winning and successful storyline. So let's dive into a bit more detail. And what I have here is an attempt of a definition. So this is my own very personal definition. Please don't cite me on that. But I hope this helps you understand this a bit better what it is. So let me just read it out to you. Action titles are headers of a slide presentation that summarize the content of the slide by formulating a complete sentence. So just to kind of go in it point by point what exactly that means. So action titles are the headers of a presentation. So the header would be something like this. Here again you see that this is formulated in the style of an action title. And then second, of a slide presentation. So yes, we are talking about slide presentations like in PowerPoint or other programs. So this is where action titles are used. And they're supposed to summarize the content. Here again, here's the definition, and then in the title you always try to really kind of get the gist of what the page is showing. If you remember the beginning, there was the slide with the horizontal and the vertical logic. So in order for you to really write a winning logic, you need to make sure that the action titles actually really represent what the reader is seeing on the page. And then finally, they are written by formulating a complete sentence. So if you look at these titles, a title like that, you can see that it's really a complete sentence. So they help to create a clear storyline within a presentation. It is not just the title of a couple of words, right? You see these people making quite often that, for instance, on a slide like that, somebody would only write action title definition or something like that. And the problem with that is that if you kind of create the headers of your page or of your slide like that, it's not really possible to just skip through all the pages and get the key message, because in most cases the titles, if you formulate them that way, won't really be speaking for themselves. It's usually then always necessary to really read the page in order to get the key message out of the page. But with action titles, we want to enable exactly that, right? So that the page itself isn't that important anymore. The key message is already in the action title. And now I would like to introduce a very familiar concept that can be helpful when formulating action titles. So if you struggle to come up with a good action title, a reason for that could be that your page actually lacks something that is called a so what, right? So what do we mean when we talk about the so what? So imagine you look at a slide and there could be all kinds of information on the slide. Maybe you did a fancy analysis, you see different kinds of charts and so on. And maybe that's interesting, But sometimes you will find yourself asking the question, so what, right? So why does it matter what I see on the slide? What is the implication for my business, for the project that I'm working on, that is kind of depicted here on this slide. And this is actually what many people do wrong. They kind of create some kind of analysis, and maybe it's fancy and maybe it's interesting, but they lack to really kind of put out there what the implication of that is. Or you could say, they do not really show what the so what of the page is. So whenever you kind of struggle and wonder, do I really need this page? Or kind of ask yourself what a good action title would be, maybe start with asking yourself, so what, right? Why do I need this page? What is the so what? What is the message? And if you cannot really come up with a good so what, then probably this page lacks a strong message, a strong key message. And then you would either usually need to take this page out, or you would need to restructure it, to recreate it, for you to enable it to have a key message. So, if you can't come up with an action title, ask yourself critically if this so what is actually there. What I will do now is I will give you an exercise which I hope will help you to really kind of distinguish good from bad action titles, and you will see that in the next section. In this section, I'm doing an exercise with you that will hopefully help you to distinguish good action titles from bad or maybe not so good action titles. And what you see here is a page, and I deleted the action title from the page. And I mean, it's not important that you understand all the nitty-gritty details, but just to quickly kind of give you the summary, you see here kind of two regions, North America, the first column here, and the second column, Asia Pacific. And then there is some kind of quantification of the EBIT potential. So EBIT is kind of a term for the profit of a company. So here's basically a profit potential if the company would decide to enter these regions. And we showed that here, and so the first question that I would like to ask you is, what would be a good action title to that page? So please now pause the video and take whatever time you need to come up with a suggestion. And then afterwards, we will discuss this suggestion. So stop the video now, and then let's resume in a few seconds. Okay, now you have a suggestion, and maybe even write it down if that helps you, because this way you cannot really cheat yourself. And what we will do now is we will go over a couple of other suggestions that I prepared for you. And after each one, we can ask ourselves, is this a good action title or not? And here again, feel free to pause the video after every kind of action title suggestion that I will blend in now. And before then I tell you what I think, kind of ask yourself, right? So is this a good action title or not? Let's begin with the first suggestion, derived potentials for an expansion. So would this be a good title, a good action title to this page? And again, pause the video if you need a second to think about it. And so here I would argue, no, this is not a good action title. Why not? Because actually it doesn't really fit in the definition, right? And why not? Because basically it's not a full sentence. It doesn't really give you the key, kind of the key message of this page in the title. It just tells you that this is a title that has something to do with derived potentials for an expansion. But it doesn't really tell you what the potential is, right? So is this something good or bad? Is the potential positive or negative? So basically, to really get the message out of it, you would really have to read the page. Otherwise, it's not possible. And this is kind of the opposite of what an action title is supposed to do. So this is a second example. Let me read it out to you. Expansion to new geographies creates a positive EBIT potential. Once again, pause the video if you like. So is this a good action title or not? And here I would argue that it's too generic. So it's a bit better than the first action title because this actually is a full sentence and it really conveys a message, right? It says you that there is a positive EBIT potential in kind of tapping these new geographies, but it's still too generic. You can get much more detailed than that, and we will see this in future examples. So here another new suggestion for an action title. Again, pause the video. Is this a good action title or not? expansion to North America and Asia Pacific creates a positive EBIT potential. And what you see here is that this is now much more concrete than the first one or than the second one, because now it talks about the specific regions that this page is looking into. So yes, now we're really getting closer to a good result, to a good action title. And nevertheless, I would argue that you can do better than that, because when possible, it's always a good idea to really quantify the things that you analyzed. And now this is what the next example is all about. And here again, expansion to North America and Asia Pacific creates a positive EBIT potential of 22 million. So, what's wrong with that, right? So this is, I would say, already very good. And if you catch that, so 22 million would be the sum of the 12 million and the 10 million here. Or it says also here the 22 million. The only thing that I would criticize with this title is that it is a bit too wordy, right? You can kind of formulate the very same message with fewer words. And this is usually always advantageous, because then the reader doesn't have to go into too much detail to really get the key message out of it. So one final suggestion, expansion to North America and Asia Pacific with 22 million EBIT potential. And I would argue, yes, this is a good action title. It summarizes the key message of the page. It is pretty concise and short. It doesn't use too much words to put this message across. So I think this would be a feasible option. And of course, in the end, I think it's important to emphasize that, of course, there's nothing like the mathematically correct perfect action title, right? There are many feasible options, but probably some action titles are better than others. And I would just really encourage you to think about, whether your action title is as good as it could be. And I hope that this example kind of gives you some food for thought in order to get to that conclusion. So just in the end, what I would like you to do is, again, here in the Q&A section of this course that kind of appears in the bottom of the page, if you hover here with the mouse, I think it says Browse Q&A. Just enter maybe an alternative solution that you came up with. And then you have the opportunity to also check out what other classmates of yours kind of came up with. And then hopefully you can also learn from these other solutions that other people kind of created. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this course on creating good and compelling action titles. Maybe you even had a coffee just as I had over time while watching this. And if you would like to learn more on how to create these professional consulting style looking PowerPoint slides more than just the action title, check out the description below. There is a link to my course where you have basically a full back-to-back course lecture on how to create presentations like consulting firms like, for instance, BGG or Bain will do. Thank you, hope to enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please do. That would mean the world to me. Thank you and have a good day.